2 and 3 and 4 and...
Okay, so I'm gonna make soul cakes and talk a little bit. There's a picture that I'm gonna put up of all the ingredients that you need for these soul cakes. Oh, I can't talk today. But anyway, I'll also include the recipe in the description box. And we're gonna take a little bit of a different take on soul cakes today. It's an ancient recipe, and believed to, well, probably more than likely this is how trick-or-treating began, because people would, you know, go house to house and ask for soul cakes in exchange for prayers. So we're going to start with the 3½ cups of flour. I've already got it in my bowl with a wooden spoon. 2 sticks of butter, which has been softened. Excuse my finger, that's not dirt, that's paint. I've been spray painting and it wouldn't come off and I ran out of nail polish remover. So anyway, we're going to start with 2 sticks of butter, and it's softened now. So I'm just going to put that right into the flour and start kind of chopping it up into the flour a little bit. Set my stuff over here. I'm going to chop that right up into the flour. And you know, we're going to talk about a couple of different things that Planet Pathlings set up for this week. One of the things about soul cakes is it's an ancient, whoops, I'm going to get flour everywhere. You know I'm going to make a mess. It's an ancient recipe, and this particular recipe is kind of an easier version. There are all kinds of different recipes to make this, and however you make it is up to you. And cookies. Okay, well, let's talk about that for a minute. Yes, they are cookies. The word cookie didn't come around until recent centuries. In ancient time, anything that was flat and sweet was a cake. In some countries, they call cookies biscuits, but these were cakes. Whether it's made as a nice big fluffy cake as we know it or not, back then it was a cake. So that looks good enough for now. Let me get a fork, because the next thing I'm going to do is the eggs. I've got 2 eggs, and we're going to beat them lightly. Give them a light beating. Got 1 cup of sugar. I'm going to pour that right in there and kind of mix it. The butter and flour. I am horrible at measuring everything perfectly. I don't do that. It's up to you how you do it. The recipe calls for a nice generous pinch of saffron. I didn't have saffron, but this is calendula, also known as marigold, and it's a nice healthy pinch. It's also known as poor man's saffron. So, you know, I'm just gonna put that right in there. Some ground allspice. Calls for a ½ teaspoon. I'm gonna be kind of generous with that. Cinnamon. That's probably more than a ½ teaspoon, but I like cinnamon. It's good for you. Ginger. And I do have some fresh that I dehydrated, but this is what I'm going to use. Put that in there. stir around. Now to me that doesn't seem like very many spices at all. Okay, and then we're going to put the egg in. Look at me, I've got cinnamon all over me. And then it calls for either malt vinegar or apple cider vinegar, and I'm using unfiltered apple cider vinegar. It calls for about 2 tablespoons, and then of course the rest of the recipe says just add it until you get this nice ball of dough. And so I'm gonna add it. And then of course I can add more if I need to. Now I'm just going to go ahead and get this mixed into a nice dough. Kind of clean up my space a little bit, and then I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so I just took these soul cakes out of the oven, and they'll be fine like they are, or you want to sprinkle them with maybe some powdered sugar, and I mixed some powdered sugar with some cinnamon. In the last clip I made, my battery died. Now I have it plugged in, but I mixed my powdered sugar with some cinnamon and put it in this that I had left. And so I'm just going to sprinkle it on there while it's still warm, just a little bit. You could put raisins, dates, raisins, anything you want on here. And that's about enough. And then we'll try one here in a little bit. I'm going to let these cool and put the next batch in the oven. Hopefully I got enough in the last clip when I was rolling out the dough. You just roll it out a little bit and take a glass and make your, and you could use cookie cutters if you like, but I just want them to look traditional, and that's what I have. So, okay, got the soul cakes done. I've got my coffee here. I've tried one. It's really good. Definitely good with coffee. You want to get them out of the oven. If they start getting a little brown, like a couple of these on the side there, they're going to be a little bit more crunchy, but those are the best for dipping in the coffee. I'm going to try this one right here. Oh my gosh, that is so good. Really good. And with coffee, oh yeah. Life is good, folks. Life is really good. I am blessed. Anyway, that's the soul cake recipe. And now we're going to go and give it as an offering, or I'm going to show you how I'm setting up my ancestors' altar for Samhain. And I'm going to be using these. Okay. My ancestor altar. Yes, I am still munching on some of that soul cake. Very good. I have limited space, but I make the best of it. You can see my little witch over there. She's definitely going to be part of my ancestor altar. I just love her. And she's got a jack-o'-lantern. I'm still making some more candles, but for Samhain, the colors are black and orange, of course, and this is a Halloween bleeding candle. This black candle, I did make some that bleed red. This one will bleed orange, because orange and black is the Halloween and Samhain colors. And if you look at my last video, you'll see why they're the Samhain colors. In the middle, I have a white spirit candle. And then, of course, just an orange candle. And then I made these little candles, the little skull and pumpkin, to signify, you know, our ancestors and the celebration of their life and death. I am going to be using the soul cakes and a cup of coffee because all of my ancestors were coffee drinkers. My mother and my grandmother were huge coffee drinkers. And my great-grandmother, I'm assuming she was too. Everybody in the family we love coffee. And it's black because that's how my mother and grandmother drank it. Alright, right here is a representation of my mother and my grandmother. This was my grandmother's mother's ring. And this was my mother's little ring here. This little bottle was oil perfume and it belonged to my great-grandmother. Also, that has been passed down and owned by everybody, all the women in the family, is the hat pins that belong to my great-grandmother's mother, and was passed down to her and through all the women in my family, and lastly me. And it's the original. I don't know which one came with this hat pin box, but this is, very old. And so this is my ancestor altar, and this is what I will be using for Samhain and doing ritual with. I'll probably add another candle or two for whatever spell work that I decide. As far as pictures, I do have some pictures, but they're packed away. I may not use them this year. But there you have it. Now, my thoughts on communing with the dead. I don't use just Samhain to commune with my dead family members. And when I say commune, I mean just that communing, not communicating. Communing to me is, remembering, maybe holding and wearing my grandmother's or my mother's rings. Maybe touching and stroking the hat box because it's velvety, and thinking about my great-grandmother. Lighting the candles, thinking of the little things about them, and kind of holding them in my heart. Necromancy you certainly can do. I really believe, and this is going with my belief on ghosts and spirits and everything. I do believe that there are ghosts and spirits that do walk the earth and that are caught between two worlds. I do believe that most people, when they die, will cross over to wherever it is they're supposed to be. But occasionally you might have someone that's confused. I believe this to be true, especially for children who don't understand. In a particular graveyard I like to frequent, it's a lot of children are buried there, and you really feel a strong presence of the children. Sometimes I believe that sickness or death comes swiftly to children who don't understand. And in this particular case, they are there in spirit and they don't know. They don't want to cross over. They want to be with their mothers. And so they become stuck between the two worlds, or within our world in the last place before they were buried. Or the place where, most children, I believe, automatically know to cross over, but sometimes there's that bond where they do not want to leave their parents, and so they may still be here. Same for other folks who may, die quickly and are confused and don't know they need to cross over to wherever it is that they need to go. And so until they do learn or feel like it's the right time for them to continue crossing over, they may be stuck. I also believe that there is a residual haunting, which is not really a life force, or once was a life force or a ghost, but just a tape, like a repeat, like it repeats. You can read up on Google about that, so I'm not really going to get into that, but I do believe that there are certain ghosts and that are stuck here, and we can communicate with them. As far as communicating with someone that's crossed over, my personal opinion on that is to let someone at rest and not try to bring them back, because they may be in a better place, and why bring them back here, just because you think you need advice or something, I'm like, let whoever's at rest, because they probably have had a rough time, while they were on this earth, and it's their time to rest, and be where they need to be. And that's my belief on it. Maybe not necessarily true for everybody, but I do not have a problem with calling upon a spirit that may already be here, or that someone brought forth and didn't put away. I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem with waking up a resting spirit, though. That's just my take on it. My tradition, as far as Samhain is concerned, is I'm a solitary eclectic. Until recently did I start celebrating with others, and this year, of course I will do some, solitary ritual, as far as my ancestor altar, and I have been invited somewhere, and not sure how that's going to go out, but mostly for me, being solitary is just about, celebrating my ancestors. And I do different things, and everything for me changes from year to year with what I learn or what I feel like I need to do. So it's not always the same. Everybody has their different things. I will probably do some Halloweeny things, like I will carve a pumpkin and I will make a meal. This year, I'm going to go with pork, because as I've been studying, and I have a nice pork roast in there, as I've been studying, this is the time of year that a lot of people would put things back for the winter. And of course, having the sows bred and, needing to make room for the new baby pigs in, the spring, this would be the time of year they would go ahead and butcher a pig, and they'd have a nice, usually they might use that as a feast, because certainly they're going to be putting up bacon, hams, things like that. So they're going to get the smokehouse, kicked up, and, why not have a roast when it's fresh? So I'm going to have a roast dinner this year. I will be serving some of the traditional things. Now, the last video I did, I posted the recipe for a pumpkin pie in the pumpkin shell without the crust, and I will probably make that. I was going to make that for today's video, but I decided to go with the soul cakes, because they are more of a Samhain recipe, where the pumpkin could be Samhain or, Thanksgiving. It's a fall recipe. And not only that, but the cookies will keep for a few days, while the pie may not, and, we like pumpkin around here. It probably won't last 10 minutes when it comes out of the oven. I'd like to wish everyone a very blessed Samhain and a happy Halloween. Blessed be.